Hello everybody, it's Max. This video is a follow-up to my last Asperger's video where I talked about my experiences with prescription drugs. Though a lot of people requested I discuss my experiences with recreational drugs and alcohol, I had no experiences to offer because I have never taken anything but prescription drugs and only have been drunk 2 or 3 times in my life. Because of this, I figured I would do a companion video again, much like I did with episode 4.5, where I asked a bunch of women to share their experiences. So I put out a call to my audience to share their experiences with drugs and alcohol. In this episode, I will be reading 5 emails. Thank you so much to the people who sent them in. You're giving hundreds of people so much hope by making them realize they are not alone in their experiences, making them realize that we are all in this together and we need to support each other. Finally, I will do my best to not interject much commentary and let people speak for themselves, but I'll speak up where I feel necessary. Now, on with the video. Our first story comes to us from Cathy Garrett, and she writes, "My story. About 9 years ago, I was going back to school to retool my skill set to be a secondary school STEM teacher. My ADHD was getting in the way of some of the needed reading and general studying I needed to do. So I asked my general practitioner if there was a medication I could take, expecting Ritalin. He instead put me on a generic form of Adderall. I expected it to allow me to read for longer per session and to complete more of my homework in a given amount of time. Instead, it became the very best sleep aid I've ever tried. Apparently, I'm so differently wired that even mild forms of speed make it so I can't even keep my eyes open. My body also reacts badly to caffeine with skin rashes and crippling joint pain from merely drinking a couple of glasses of tea a day for a week. Did you know Lipton homebrewed iced tea has 50% more caffeine than Mountain Dew? I did not know that. I didn't. It's okay though, I never liked coffee anyway." And that's the end of her story. The second story comes to us from Emerald Queen, and Emerald Queen writes, "Hey Max, I'm a female on the spectrum, very high functioning, but I also have cerebral palsy, generalized anxiety disorder, post-traumatic stress disorder, misophonia, hatred of certain sounds. Imagine having something trigger you like nails on a chalkboard, but the sound you hear is actually a water faucet running and you have a nearly uncontrollable urge to kill said faucet. While I've only ever tried one prescription to help me cope with the anxiety I was having, I got off of it after only 1 week because nothing changed at all. My biological mom was a drug addict, as was my adoptive dad. Adoptive mom wasn't on drugs, thankfully. But because 2 people who were at one point authority figures in my life were addicted, I, to this day, am scared to take anything, even vitamins for my autism. I instead write, dance, draw, paint, or play video games, mostly Spyro games, good call. Although my Skylanders game is helpful too, or snuggling up with my emotional support dragon, Spyro, plushie, when I need to blow off some steam in between weekly sessions with my therapist. Signed, the Emerald Queen, a character I created to be the ideal version of myself, an alter ego you might say." And that was the end of her email. The next email came to me from Rotem Hakim, and Rotem writes, "Hey Max, my name is Rotem. I'm a 22-year-old from Israel, and I recently diagnosed myself with Asperger's. I wasn't diagnosed in my school days, I think just because I'm a girl, and I camouflaged pretty well and because I was extremely good at some things and did quite well school-wise. So when I effed up, more than anyone I know that I consider normal, I was harshly blamed. So I got out of my childhood pretty unhappy, and I didn't even know that because I only learned I was raised in a bubble that I thought was normal when I left home about 2 years ago. I think that the main thing that made me realize I'm not just imagining having Asperger's syndrome is that when I was 4, the kindergarten asked my parents to take me to a hearing test because I wasn't responding when called to, and you can guess my hearing was perfect in the test. Later in school life, the school requested a therapist will assess me, and what she said was pretty much what I understand is Asperger's, but she just didn't say it. She said there's a gap between the intelligence and social skills. So I started to drink with my friend fairly late to most of my peers, when I was about 16. And I think I reacted a bit different than my friends, but I didn't do it too often. But later, when I was 19, I tried weed for the first time, and let me tell you, it blew my mind. I feel like it allowed me to think about things that were inaccessible to me. I feel like it has helped seeing the bigger picture. It helped me realize what I couldn't over time, like telling a blind man he can't see. A good friend of mine, which now that I diagnosed myself, I can pretty much say she was also an Aspie, committed suicide on October 17th. I got badly depressed, but unlike my other friends, I started deteriorating to the point I can't work anymore. I barely meet friends and I rarely ever visit my family. My friend was in a mental hospital for a year and they couldn't help her. I think because they treated her for depression when she was maybe depressed, but because of real reasons. She was just way too smart. No one there could outsmart her. I went to a psychiatrist a few months after it happened and he gave me a pill from the SSRI family. I took one time, half of the weakest pill. It was the worst night of my life. I had symptoms of serotonin syndrome, which is basically serotonin overdose. And I guess I didn't lack serotonin, but they don't check. They just give you a pill, and if it works, and if it doesn't, they give you another. Yep, that's usually how it works. No matter what damage they might be causing to the brain. So I'm pretty much addicted to weed right now, don't have a job, fighting so hard to exist every day. By the way, I think if she hadn't committed suicide, I might have lasted the way I did for a few more years before it would all break down, and I'd realize I can't pretend I'm an actual person anymore. Next letter comes to us from, I'm assuming you pronounce that Daan Siderius, and he writes, "Hi Max, I was diagnosed with ADHD when I was 12. Apparently I also was diagnosed with autism or Asperger's. Found out only months ago. I'm 21 now. For my experience, I never abused anything. I like a good drink once in a while, but I never overdo it. Also, I have Concerta 54mg prescription, and I, even with my level of curiosity, never even tried any other drugs. Mostly due to my own fear of addiction. Hope you might use it in the video. By the way, try a video on how to make people actually aware of them having autism when diagnosed, as I walked around diagnosed for 9 years, but I wasn't even aware. Kind regards, Daan Siderius." And finally, this last email comes to us from Andrew Bohnsack, and he writes, "I've only ever been prescribed Concerta and Vyvanse, both for my ADD. Concerta was when I was young. Probably 7 till 11 it was terrible. Pretty much the same as that part about losing his soul. Pretty much no emotion and no appetite. I only had one emotion, rage. After my mother took me off of that, I gained back my weight and most of my emotions. The rage wasn't as bad, but it still stuck around. So, when I was 14, I was prescribed Vyvanse, and pretty much the same as you for the first couple of days, I felt great. I had lots of energy and was very happy. Then the side effects came. Pretty much the same as Concerta, except not as extreme, and when I say that I mean the rage. It calmed down in the years since Concerta, but it was still there. I can't remember if it escalated the rage a bit or didn't do anything to it at all. Vyvanse still made me unaware if I was hungry or not, so I ended up losing a lot of weight again. When I turned 16, I started weaning myself off of Vyvanse without my parents knowing. Well, that's my experience with prescribed drugs. Never had an interest in hard drugs or pill popping. I smoke weed occasionally. I started smoking it about 2 months before turning 17, and it helped me tremendously. I began coming out of my shell more and interacting with people more, and it helped me control my anger tremendously as well. Also, I've gained about a good 60 pounds or so, and that's great because all growing up I was extremely underweight. When I was 16, I weighed about 130 or so, and I'm about 11 inches tall, so 130 pounds isn't very good. After about 6 years now, I'm 196. I hope this was helpful. And that's all the letters I received. Thanks again to Cathy, Emerald Queen, Rotem, Daan, and Andrew for taking the time to send these emails. I really hope writing your stories provided you some form of relief, and if not, just let me remind you how much it has helped my other viewers with AS to know that there are other people out there like them who have gone through very similar circumstances. Hell, it's the whole reason why I started doing this series in the first place. Until the next video, I recommend that anybody who enjoys my autism-related content should tune into the Differently Wired show. It's a weekly live stream that I do every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. The whole point of the show is to provide advice and resources to those who are suffering with mental health or autism-related issues. If you're questioning my medical expertise, as you should, don't worry. I do the show with a professional named John Tucker, a coach who specializes in autism and ADHD. If you want to participate in the show, you can send in questions for the mailbag segment by using this email address, maxderrat@yahoo.ca. If you want to talk to us directly, make sure to hop onto my Discord server. There's a link in the description box, and sign up in the text chat titled Call In Sign Up. You can also ask live questions, which we address towards the end of the show. The response has been very positive so far, and we intend to continue growing that enthusiasm. Until next time, have a lovely, lovely day.